if you're eating clean, working out, and still not losing weight, here's what's really going on. Hi, I'm Trevor, and I've already helped my patients lose almost 600,000 pounds using my Transform One program. And here's the deal. You're not crazy. Don't worry. Your body is fighting against you and no one has told you why. It's all about what's happening at a deeper level inside your body. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to actually break down the hidden reasons that fat just won't budge and how you can actually go ahead and fix it. And what I've done is I've actually broken this down into 4 secret-filled sections that we're about to dive into right now. Number 1 is why weight loss resistance is actually a real thing. So we've heard the term weight loss resistance. What is it? And is this real? What is going on here? It's not just about calories in versus calories out. If that actually worked, no one would be having this struggle. And we wouldn't really even need to have this conversation right now, because in versus out. All right, burn more than we're actually taking in. Very, very simple. But here's the deal. It actually starts with poor nutrition and lifestyle choices. And we're talking about weight loss resistance. What is it? How does it actually happen? It starts with poor nutrition and poor lifestyle choices here. So we're talking about processed foods. We're talking about excess sugars and basically like processed sugars, right? Non-natural sugars. Basically, think about opening up a package of sugar and eating that, or candy sugar, that type of thing, right? Poor sleep is another one. Stress that's happening. Lack of movement, so sedentary lifestyle, and also toxin exposures. When we're talking about toxins exposures, there's a lot of different toxins here, but we're talking, say, like heavy metals, mold, things like that. And what this does is it actually triggers what's called chronic cellular inflammation. And this is actually the culprit, because what it does is it actually damages the cells and it disrupts normal cellular function. The cells are basically now in flux. All right, and from here, what happens is that inflammation leads to poor hormone signaling. So all of a sudden, the cells become inflamed, the cells become aggravated. And here's a cell right here, right? So we have a cell, and on the outside is the cell membrane. The cell membrane is basically the brain of the cell. And what it does is it governs what gets in the cell and also what gets out of the cell. And when this becomes inflamed, well, nutrients can't really latch onto the outside of the cell and they can't go inside the cell. So it basically rejects the nutrients, right? So nothing gets absorbed. And then also inside the cell, there's a thing called a mitochondria, which is like the powerhouse. That's really where all the energy comes from. And there's waste product that comes out of that mitochondria, and that cannot get out. That toxicity cannot get out. So like I mentioned, that inflammation leads to poor hormone signaling. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about, say, thyroid hormone, cortisol hormone, insulin, leptin, ghrelin. There's basically dysfunction in there. And as a result of this, the metabolism slows down. So basically the body says, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble here. And the sympathetic nervous system comes into play, this fight or flight we may have heard of. And the body says, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. I have to shut everything down and go to survival mode. And the metabolism slows down, which means the opposite of what we want happens. Fat burning also slows down. The efficiency drops as the body actually begins to resist weight loss. And that is weight loss resistance. And at this stage, people really struggle to lose that weight, despite any type of, call it, diet or exercise, because their cells just aren't responding efficiently. So this may be you. You may be sitting there being like, oh my gosh, I've tried this diet, that diet, this diet, that diet. I've actually documented 38. I'm on my 38th one right now. And I'll tell you what, I've definitely been in positions where no matter what I did, it's just not budging. And I actually blamed the system I was doing, but come to find out, wow, I had a lot of cellular inflammation going on because of a lot of lifestyle choices that I was doing. And, once I cleaned those up, it was like, boom, things really started working. Whether I actually liked them for a long-term, I guess you'd say a solution, that's kind of another story at the end of the day. It's like in terms of, okay, well, this is working, but is it sustainable? Two different questions, right? But again, if you're struggling with that, you're saying, oh my gosh, I'm putting so much effort into my nutrition, right? I'm putting so much effort into my exercise, and it's just not working. This is really what's going on with weight loss resistance. So if your metabolism is stuck, no amount of dieting or exercise is going to fix it. So how do we actually fix it? Because we're all about solutions here. So basically trying to force weight loss is just not going to work at this point. You have to actually address the root cause of cellular inflammation. Like we talked about, we have that cell, the entire cellular membrane is inflamed, so nothing can get in. All right, no nutrients can get in. The hormone signals cannot actually be caught by the cell too. So it's kind of like, I'm not getting any transmission here. All right. And then again, toxicity cannot get out. So that cellular inflammation and also hormone dysfunction, these are the things that actually have to happen first through a detoxification process. And we call this a full systemic cellular detoxification here. And it basically is almost like a cellular reset. All right, it resets the cell and it makes your body then say, okay, you know what? Now we can actually let go of the fat. All right, like we're used to, like it used to happen, like our body used to respond to things. That's really what we're looking for here. Okay, so the second category we're going to talk about is the 3 hidden factors stopping your progress. So it is hormonal chaos, since we're going to talk about first, then chronic inflammation equals stuck metabolism. We kind of covered that a little bit. And then also gut dysfunction equals fat storage mode. So we're going to dive into those. Let's start with that hormonal chaos, because we talked about this a little bit here when we were talking about insulin and cortisol and things like that. So if your hormones are off in your body will hold on to fat for survival. Just like we talked about, if we have that cortisol is off, our insulin is off, say that the leptin, the ghrelin, like we talked about here, our body is in that survival mode. That is the sympathetic nervous system. And think about it like this. Anyone who's going through a really hard time, we have sympathy for them. That is the sympathetic nervous system. When we're actually in that, our body's in survival mode. When our body's in survival mode, it holds on to fat. Conveniently, right? We wish it would expel, but that's not at all what happens here. So for cortisol, this is the stress hormone, and that actually stores belly fat and it breaks down muscle. All right, so that's really interesting, right? So cortisol not only actually makes us hold more belly fat, it also breaks down our muscle. And if you recall, muscle is our metabolism. All right, so the more muscle we have, the higher our metabolic rate is in terms of, basically think about this. Body fat burns in the belly of muscle. So if we have a lot of it, we're able to burn a lot of basically body fat. You know, call it belly fat, call it body fat, any fat on our body, right? And if we have less muscle, we're only able to burn less and less and less and less fat. All right. So cortisol, that's that stress hormone, and it stores belly fat, breaks down muscle. Insulin resistance, we may have heard of this as well. So we have a strong metabolism, right? And then we start having those poor lifestyle, poor nutrition choices, and it turns into weight loss resistance. All right, so it's like, I'm having a hard time losing weight. And then it turns into insulin resistance. So basically meaning that our body is no longer reactive to insulin. Our pancreas releases insulin when we eat sugar. And then the insulin attaches onto sugar and it transports it to a cell so the cell can use it as energy. Well, when we have insulin resistance, that no longer happens. So basically it keeps your body in fat storage 24/7. That's what insulin resistance is. It keeps that body in that fat storage mode continuously. All right, now let's talk about the hormones of leptin and ghrelin. So basically what happens here is that when we have dysfunction there, all right, again, we're in that fight or flight, all right? We're in that sympathetic nervous system. This is gonna give us, say, that messed up hunger hormone where you basically constantly are craving food. You're like, oh my gosh, I just ate a lot last night and I'm waking up in the morning and I'm kind of fake hungry. That's what's going on there. So again, to actually fix this, we're talking about balancing those hormones. And again, we can do this through 2 things. We can do that through the systemic cellular detoxification process that we talked about, and we can also do this through nutrient-dense foods. And we're talking lean proteins, fruits and vegetables. We can also actually do that with stress management. So say things like meditation, things like that, deep breathing exercises. That is really going to really help balance that balance that hormonal chaos that's actually going on right there, okay? Number 2 in this category, let's talk about chronic inflammation equals a stuck metabolism. And when we're talking about chronic inflammation, we're talking chronic cellular inflammation, meaning all the cells in our body are inflamed. All right, so think about it that way, because we've heard the term inflammation before, and many times when we think about that, we're thinking, inflammation of the knee, inflammation of the shoulder. We're talking actually, when we have chronic cellular inflammation, we have about 100 trillion cells in our body. Essentially, every single one of those cells is inflamed, and that is basically equals a stuck metabolism. So if our cells are inflamed, our body cannot burn fat efficiently, and this leads to actually water retention, it leads to bloating, it leads to cravings, food cravings, and also oh my gosh, energy dropped, right? And how does this happen? So we're talking processed foods, we're talking toxins, heavy metal exposure, and even actually healthy diet foods, right? Diet dressings and things like that, low fat this, low carb that. These trigger inflammation without us actually even realizing it, because here's the deal, they're not actually real food. All right, so how we can fix this is we can lower our inflammation by really just fueling our cells with clean, whole foods. It is that simple. I realize it's not easy because there's so much temptation out there. There's so many options out there, but it is that simple. And when I'm talking, whole foods that are clean, again, the basics, right? Lean proteins, vegetables, and fruits. Now we're going to talk about the third piece of this right here is gut dysfunction equals fat storage mode. Gut dysfunction, we're going to talk about that here. Unhealthy gut bacteria. We've heard of the gut microbiome, okay? So there's basically bacteria that are actually going around in our gut, in our stomach area. And when we have unhealthy gut bacteria, that is going to, again, lead to more cravings, more storage, more fat storage, and also a slower digestion. So we're basically just going to be very, very confused. We're going to be like, I'm starving here. I'm constantly storing more fat, but I feel like I'm not digesting properly, so I feel backed up. What is going on? What's happening here is your gut is inflamed. All right, so just like the cells that we talked about, we have that chronic cellular inflammation. Our gut is made up of a mass of billions and billions of these inflamed cells. So like we said, each one of them is inflamed. Nutrients cannot get properly absorbed. And this really makes fat loss impossible because the cells are not fed properly. They can't actually get the toxicity that's inside of them out. They can't get that out because we have, again, that inflammation that's going on. The gut is directly connected to this. And it's also directly connected to the hormones, the energy, and also our metabolism. And when it's off, everything is off. It's interesting because when we're talking about this, it is that simple. It's like, okay, we have everything is healthy. All our cells are healthy and everything's properly functioning. And then all of a sudden we have poor lifestyle and poor nutrition choices. And all of a sudden we get cellular inflammation. Boom, the cells are inflamed. And this leads to weight loss resistance. And then weight loss resistance carries on for a little time. And then that leads to insulin resistance. So now our body's not responding to insulin anymore. And then that leads to what's called metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is like the big one. And it's like inside of metabolic syndrome is insulin resistance and weight loss resistance, and it's all, again, because of the main culprit, cellular inflammation. Cellular inflammation starts it all. And the reason I actually went into that, and there's a lot of huge words, is if we can actually heal the cell, everything gets well. Like that is the takeaway right there. So if we can do a full systemic cellular detox and reset the cell so it's like, boom, everything's good. All of a sudden, metabolic syndrome goes away, insulin resistance is reversed, weight loss resistance is reversed, and we're like, all of a sudden, I can lose weight again. It's so interesting. So that's the fix, is we want to do a full systemic cellular detox, so basically a detox system for this. And, here's the thing. With this, there are several different detox programs out there. There's Detox Tea I talked about last time. There's a lot of detox things you can find online. Everything is not the same. Everything is not the same, and there are different brands out there that are decent. There's different brands out there that are horrible, and there's some that are amazing. And it's generally going to be very, very private, private label stuff that's really not honestly publicized out there is going to be the best stuff. It's almost like this. Here's a good rule. The more it's actually marketed, the less money they're actually putting into the product development is an interesting takeaway. So here's how you can actually fix this now, because it's like, well, what can I do about this right now? We can fix your gut. You can start fixing your gut right now with what's called prebiotics. Okay, there's prebiotics and there's probiotics. Now, prebiotics we can actually find in fermented foods like sauerkraut. They even have fermented pickles, things like that. Probiotics, you can get any supplement. You cannot go overboard on probiotics, okay? So any supplement out there is decent for probiotics as well. And then magnesium citrate. Magnesium citrate is fantastic for really just keeping you regular because again, a lot of people get backed up and that's not a good thing. We're talking about toxicity in your body. We need to get rid of that. All right, so that's a fantastic start to really just get that gut functioning properly, which is absolutely going to help with that cellular inflammation big time, okay? But that's really essentially what we're going for, is getting those cells well. All right, getting those cells well, and everything just goes awesome from there. All right. So again, today we're talking about the 4 sections in terms of why is fat not budging from our body no matter what we do. And we're at number 3 here, which is why is eating less not making sense. All right. We all heard the whole thing. It's like eat less and then we'll lose weight. Why is actually eating less making it worse? And that's a huge, huge fact right there. It's really interesting. So it's like this. When we actually calorie cut extreme, it slows our metabolism big time. Because when we're actually cutting our calories too low, we don't have enough calories to actually support muscle mass on our body. Our muscle mass goes down, our metabolism goes down. Our muscle mass goes up, our metabolism goes up. So extreme calorie cutting slows that metabolic rate down because it lowers our muscle on our body, because our body actually thinks that we're starving. So it shuts down. It goes into that fight or flight mode. It's like, panic mode, and it holds on to fat because it's in survival. And it's like, I don't know how long I'm gonna have to stay here in survival, but that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna completely shut down so I can preserve. All right, so skipping meals, not a good thing, because what this does, if we talked about hormones before, when we skip meals, it actually spikes our cortisol levels, it spikes our insulin levels, and that actually increases belly fat. It doesn't burn it. It does the opposite of what we actually want it to. So keeping the logs on the fire, that's a really good way to think about it. Keep the logs on the fire, keep that fire stoked throughout the day. And here's another thing about this as well. When we talk about why eating less is actually making it worse, yo-yo dieting. Yo-yo dieting really leads to that metabolic damage. When we're up and down and up and down, up and down, eating a lot, eating a little, eating a lot, eating a little, it makes it even harder to lose that weight the next time. Because essentially, when we're actually under eating and we're yo-yo dieting, our metabolism drops because our muscle drops. And what typically happens is we never really gain as much muscle back as we started with. So it's like the next yo-yo diet we start with, we now start with less muscle. And then we lose more muscle on that yo-yo diet. And we never really gain it all back once we're done with that one. And then we keep losing and losing and losing. So it really just makes it harder and harder and harder to lose weight with every attempt that we do. So here's the fix. It's just a matter of eating the right foods in the right amount at the right time. That's actually going to nourish our cells. We want to be thinking about that. What's going to nourish our cells? And again, I think you know the answer at this point. Lean proteins, fruits, and vegetables. And these are going to enable our body to actually rebuild, repair, replenish, and really just not retreat. And slow down in fear, turning on that fight or flight reaction, that sympathetic nervous system right there. That is the retreat mechanism where it's like, I'm not getting enough. I'm shutting down and I'm holding on to all this body fat. Exactly the opposite of what we wanted to do, all right? Number 4, and we mentioned this here, but we're talking about the cellular reset that actually turns fat loss back on. Because like we talked about, and again, here's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff we're talking about here. Here's the issue that happens. Everything is healthy. All of a sudden we get cellular inflammation, and then that leads to weight loss resistance. We're like, you know what? I'm having a really hard time losing weight, and what's been happening is, say the things that I've been eating and maybe lack of movement, these type of things have led to that cellular inflammation, which leads to that weight loss resistance. And then if we keep those behaviors going, that leads to insulin resistance. Oh my gosh, my body, I'm almost not able to eat sugars anymore. My doctor told me I'm pre-diabetic. That's essentially where that insulin resistance comes into play. Pre-diabetic, diabetic. And then past that point, if we continue with those behaviors as well, then we're diagnosed with metabolic syndrome. So when we're talking about the cellular reset that actually turns back on fat loss, basically what happens is we're reversing all that. Oh shoot, I'm sitting in a place where I have metabolic syndrome. We do a cellular reset in terms of we detox the cell and we actually fix the gut like we talked about. We fix that microbiome with the prebiotics, with the probiotics, and also with that magnesium citrate as well. We do all those different things, and all of a sudden we go from being diagnosed with metabolic syndrome to all of a sudden insulin resistance starts to go away. All of a sudden weight loss resistance goes away and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing weight again. That's what we're talking about right here. Fat loss starts at the cellular level, not at the gym. This is so interesting, right? It starts at the cellular level, not at the gym. We can never outtrain our nutrition. We can never outrun our fork. That is a huge, huge rule, because if our cell is inflamed, well, everything is going to be much, much harder. We're going to be working our tails off and we're not going to be getting the results, and we're going to get frustrated. And that's exactly what happens. And this is just a matter of, hey, let's work smarter, not harder type deal. So your cells need the right nutrients to actually function and burn fat. So detoxing isn't about, say, juice cleanses, and, it is actually about removing the toxins from our cells and then feeding the cells what they need. Once we actually decrease that inflammation on the cellular membrane, that it's really calmed down, it's settled down. It's almost like when you get sunburn, right? It's like, boom, if you snap your fingers and the sun burns away, wow, now you can actually get the nutrients through your skin and everything feels normal, and you can get the toxicity going back out of your skin. That's what we're talking about in terms of a cell. We can really just start with working on the gut with those prebiotics, those probiotics, and also the magnesium citrate. That's a really great start right there. And then also just literally lean foods, the lean protein, the vegetables, the fruit. That is a great start without actually having a full systemic medical cellular detox system, okay? That's like step 2, that's like 2.0, right? But again, it's all about removing those toxins from the cell and then feeding your cells what they need. And we know it. I'm going to say it again. The lean proteins, the fruits, and the vegetables, okay? And it's like this. It's all about what we call taste-centered clean eating. That's in our Transform One program. It's all about taste-centered clean eating. And where I came up with this was because after documenting, I'm on my 38th nutrition program here like we talked about, it all came down to taste for me. Because I've tried so many different variations. Like I talked about, I was stuck in a lot of situations to where I was like, why is this not working no matter what I do? And then I really got into this and learned about cellular detoxification, cellular inflammation, and I really started doing some testing, and then it was like, boom, a light bulb went off. It's like, oh, this is interesting. It's like we can outsmart this thing. Or maybe I just wasn't smart enough at the time. I didn't realize what was really going on, because as soon as I did, it was like, okay, well, they all work. I think that was really my takeaway. They all work, but it's like, which one can I actually work for a lifetime? That was really what I wanted to learn, because I hated going on, nutrition programs, diets, essentially is what it was. I was doing diets, I was doing fad diets, and, from day one, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this to be over. I just want to get the data. I want to see how it works, document it, and then move on, and I didn't really realize at the time that it's like, okay, well, it's almost like that's when it needs to be over, because it's like, if we can't picture doing it for a lifetime, why do it for a day? That's really where we're at now. And that's where we came up with taste-centered clean eating, because I was like, oh my gosh, so many of these things are so bland, so unattainable, so unsustainable, because they don't taste good. And I was like, I just want it to taste good. So with taste-centered clean eating, you don't have to suffer to actually get your dream body. That's the takeaway right there. You don't have to suffer. You shouldn't have to suffer, because that is unreasonable to expect of ourselves. That is a unrealistic expectation of ourselves. And it was something that I had, for myself as well. And it's many reasons I actually stuck with these programs that I was researching and documenting as long as I did, is because I knew that I was documenting them and I needed to get the data. And that was a lot of the reasons I stuck with them as long as I did, for months at a time, and some of them over a year, some of them several years, But I landed on taste-centered clean eating. And it was more or less just taking components of all those different nutrition programs, because several of them I was kind of like, okay, I'm glad to be done with you and I'm moving on with my life. But many of them were like, wow, there were some great foundational pieces here that I really loved about these practices. And that's actually what I brought in to taste-centered clean eating, and really brought those, so it's more of a principles-based, but it starts with the principle of taste. And then we make sure that all the nutrients are there surrounding taste. It's built around taste, because people think that eating healthy equals bland, equals boring, and equals restrictive. And the truth is that you can absolutely enjoy what you're eating. It can be delicious, it can be satisfying, and it can absolutely be resetting your body. It can be detoxifying your body at the exact same time, turning your metabolism back on, building your metabolism, building your muscle, so that you actually have, a fire burning 24/7 to be able to burn more body fat, and it can taste amazing. And number one for us is our Transform One program, is flavor. That is the number one principle of our Transform One nutrition program. So number one for us in our Transform One program is flavor. And then from here, we work backwards. Just like I said, making sure that the flavor has all the right nutrients that are actually going to support building that metabolism. And this is the key to making sure that fat loss is effortless and long-term. Because again, if the fat loss is there, but we are torturing ourselves, it's like, well, we just know it's going to come back. All right. But if we actually feel like, oh my gosh, that was easy, I enjoyed this, it's like, okay, we're on to something right there. And again, this isn't about cutting more. It's really about giving your body what it's missing and actually enjoying the process and enjoying what you're eating. And when your body gets what it needs, it naturally lets go of the excess fat. So really fixing is all about focusing on healing from the inside out with really just, again, nutrient-dense food that tastes amazing instead of chasing quick fixes. That's really what it comes down to. So now that you know why fat loss actually stalls, what's one thing that you're actually going to try that you learned here today? I would love to have you drop in the comments and check out your takeaways from this here. And I'll ask you this, if this helped you, save this post. I want you to come back to this if you feel stuck at any point and you can pick up another nugget and really apply it, that's huge. And if you want me to break down any specific foods here or talk about anything different in this or in more detail, just let me know in the comments. I so appreciate that. Again, my name is Trevor here. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I know it's your most valuable asset here. Give your best to the rest of your day and take care.